morning. My name is Gabriela Prata, and I would like to welcome you all to the 6th edition of the Behave Conference, the 6th European Conference on Energy Efficiency and Behavior Change. Now happening in 2021 as with the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency as the co-host. Of course, you know, this conference is custodied by the EnR network, the network of European energy agencies, which is at the moment led by a troika of 3 agencies, Motiva, ADEME, and the Energy Saving Trust. This is also the first time that this conference is happening online. So, you know the reasons, and of course, we hope that technology is on our side and everything will work smoothly. This year, we will have in the program 3 plenaries, 26 parallel sessions, over 100 speakers, and we had at the moment until yesterday around 500 registrations. So I hope this will be a successful conference, and all the around 80 papers that will be presented and shared with everybody will be interesting and motivating to continue working in this field. However, we thought of introducing a few novelty issues in this particular edition this year. The first one is a reinforced focus on the private sector angle. And for this, I would like to call your attention for a session that is happening tomorrow at 1 p.m., where Danish private sector companies working in the energy efficiency field will be presenting in a panel. So we will have companies like Velux, Danfoss, Brunata, and Energy Solutions. So please pay attention to this session, apart from, of course, all the sessions that will be happening. Then we will have also a reinforced focus on developing countries. Since within our work, we at the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency, which is co-hosting the session this year, we very much work towards enhancing energy efficiency in developing countries. We will, of course, also focus in other thematic areas like digital solutions, gender issues, and of course, COVID-19 impacts on energy efficiency and behavior change. I would like also to call your attention to the launch of the proceedings of the conference that will happen on Friday afternoon towards the end of the conference, where we will make the official launch of this publication, where a few papers and all the abstracts will be shared for future memory of this edition of the conference. We will also be sharing the opportunity with all the authors and presenters of this conference towards a special issue on the Energy Policy Journal that is going to be provided so that you can, if you're interested, also apply for submitting your papers. Some of the presentations will be available also on the website of the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency, which is hosting the Behave conference website as well. I would like now to turn on to a few housekeeping issues, if my computer responds, which it did. So please, you know the etiquette already around online conferences. I would like, please, to request everybody to be muted during the whole conference unless they are requested or it's their turn to speak. All participants should be muted once they join the conference. We ask you to activate your web camera only when you are speaking. And you will see that for the breakout room, since we will have several parallel sessions, you'll be able to join the different sessions through pushing a button that will be available about 15 to 20 minutes before each session starts. Very important, please make sure that you have the last version of the Zoom software, which is the version 5.6. so that you'll be able to take use of all the features of the Zoom platform and of the conference. So please be sure that you download, it's very quick, and you download this version of the Zoom. So the conference will be recorded and then uploaded on the conference webpage. So thank you for paying attention to these rules. I would like now to move on to the opening plenary session. I will start presenting the 4 speakers that we will have for the opening today. The first one is Susanne Pedersen. She's the new director of UNEP Partnership, who is the host institution of the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency. Susanne is coming from the Global Green Growth Institute. She was their Assistant Director General, and before that she has a very long professional experience, very diverse, with a strong private sector background as well. Our second speaker will be Mr. Arnaud Leroy. He's since 2018 the CEO of ADEME. ADEME is the French agency for ecological transition. ADEME is also at the moment hosting the EnR Presidency. Arnaud Leroy began his career in the European Parliament. He was their Secretary General of the French Green Delegation. And he has also, before that, spent several years at the European Maritime Safety Agency in charge of protection of the marine environment. Our third speaker will be Mr. Mark Radka. He's the acting director of United Nations Environment Programme Economy Division, which is based in Paris. In his work, he helps, and the UNEP's work, he helps developing countries to reduce emissions through cooperation in sustainable energy. And we actually have a strong collaboration with UNEP, UNEP's economy division in this field. Mark Radka was also coordinator and lead author of an IPCC report on technology transfer issues. And before working for UNEP, he was at the United States Environment Protection Agency and also has worked for the World Bank. Our last speaker will be Mr. Helge Næss-Schmidt, who has kindly accepted to provide a keynote speech around the intersection between behavior change and financing. He is at the moment partner at the Copenhagen Economics, and he's focusing our work on financial aspects, having strong focus primarily working towards climate and energy and finance and tax services. Mr. Næss-Schmidt also has extensive financial market regulation experience. He has worked for the OECD in Paris and the European Commission in Brussels. He has taught economics at the Copenhagen University and at the Copenhagen Business School. So we are very keen to hear about all these 4 speakers, and I would like, without further ado, to start moving on with this opening panel. And I would like to invite Ms. Susanne Pedersen to take the floor. Please, Susanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gabriela, and welcome. Good morning, everyone. I'm really pleased to open this very interesting conference. And I would like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Arnaud Leroy, the CEO of ADEME, the French Energy Agency, and President of the EnR Network, and acknowledge the good collaboration that we've had in the organization of this conference. This applies also to the European Energy Network members, the Troika team, and the head of Behavior Change Working Group, Mrs. Emily Mikkonen from Motiva, the Finnish Energy Agency. The EnR Network is the custodian of the Behave Conference, and UNEP DTU and the Copenhagen Center for Energy Efficiency are proud to be part and partner in this most distinguished conference in Europe on energy efficiency. Also, we would like to acknowledge the support of UNEP to the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency, and with Mark Radka, the acting director of UNEP's Economy Division, also being present here today. The UNEP DTU partnership and the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency are hosted by DTU, a leading Danish engineering and energy-related research university. The Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency is the global thematic hub under the UN Sea for All initiative, and the center is dedicated to accelerating the uptake of energy efficiency policies globally. We all know the importance of striving towards carbon neutrality and green growth, and the energy transition plays a key role in that. In the latest Global Energy Review from 2021, EIA has documented that global energy CO2 emissions are almost back to pre-COVID levels. And the energy demand is also going higher with an astonishing 4.6% growth. Shifting towards renewables and focusing hard on energy efficiency is therefore a key objective in the energy transition at large. And as we will discuss in this conference, lifestyle, consumer choices, and behavior change are important for energy efficiency success. As Gabriela mentioned, this conference is hosted online from Denmark, and as such, I would also like to refer to the Danish leadership on SDG 7, where the Danish government leads the energy transition track of the upcoming UN high-level dialogue on energy in September 2021. And also the Danish government has ambitious targets with a 70% emissions reduction in Denmark by 2030, and its capital city, Copenhagen, strives towards carbon neutrality by 2025. As also mentioned, Danish businesses are in many ways leading in green technologies and solutions. They are leaders in renewable energies and energy efficiency, with companies like, to name a few, Vestas, Danfoss, Velux, Rockwool, Kamstrup, Grundfos, Rambøll, Covi, etc. And you can hear more about this at a Danish industry event tomorrow, as mentioned. Finally, the main drivers for the UNEP DTU partnership and the Copenhagen Center for Energy Efficiency towards co-organizing this event is that our mission is to develop, disseminate the latest research, knowledge, and best practices to accelerate the green growth and sustainable energy transition through a cost-effective and socially inclusive fashion. On that note, I would like to open the conference and hope that everyone will have a fruitful dialogue at the Behave. Thank you very much. Over to you, Gabriela.
Thank you very much, Susanne, for your words. I would like now to pass the floor to Mr. Arnaud Leroy, who is the CEO of ADEME. Mr. Leroy, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Gabriela. Good morning to all. So I'm really pleased to join you today at the opening of the 6th European Conference on Behavior Change and Energy Efficiency on behalf of the European Energy Network that was already mentioned this morning. We are co-sponsor and co-organizer of this event, together with UNEP DTU Partnership and the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency. EnR is a voluntary network numbering 25 European energy agencies, dealing with programs in the fields of energy efficiency, of course, renewables, it has been said, climate change, abatement, and adaptation. We'll try to push as well this element. ENR network seeks to strengthen cooperation between member states and members agencies and the other European actors. For example, EIB, I think, and the other European let's say, commission and all these elements that we can discuss with on energy efficiency. On all the issues relevant to sustainable energy, knowledge and best practices sharing are an essential part of the ENR network through its 8 working groups, which are also open to non-member organizations. You just need to be a relevant organization, but please take this as an invite as well. ENR provides a first point of contact for national energy agencies in EU member states. It provides a channel for pan-European technical support on matters on energy policy, strategy, evaluation, program design, and communication. I think these elements are taking a new, let's say, a new size, since normally this last night we try and I think we managed to get a deal on the famous climate law. So I think element of communication, evaluation, strategy, and sharing will be really important to reach the goal that EU should try to get on the climate law objectives. The energy-related behavior change working group, on behalf of the network of the ENR network, initiated and organized the very first Behave conference. Long time ago in Maastricht, 2009. The second one, Behave conference, took place in Helsinki in 2012. And from there, we try to organize every other year a number of conferences directly or with support of the ENR member organization. The 6th European Conference on Behavior Change, Behave, was originally planned, it has been said, to be held in October last year in Copenhagen. But unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has been postponed to April. So basically now we were hoping to welcome you in person to this event, but again, we have to adapt. That's why we try to make it, and I hope it will be a success, and I'm sure it will be a success through an online solution. Here we are today with hundreds of participants. Gabriela mentioned 500 people this morning from all over the world who signed up for the most prominent event on this topic in Europe. I think we have to be proud of it. Much knowledge and expertise has been shared during previous BF conferences, and your presence here today shows that this work continues and is still relevant to support the energy transition. It's even more important. Energy agencies are key players in engaging and supporting citizens in their countries on energy issues. And as we said, as it has been said just previously, energy issues are becoming more and more social issues, with the price of energy starting to grow up and the issues of taxation as well, notably in France, where we had issues with our carbon tax a few years ago, 2 years ago. So it's something that we have to discuss, share experience as well on this element. There will be an increased need for education and awareness, rising advice and support to encourage greener energy choices, as well as behavior change programs to encourage more sustainable habits. Therefore, I'm pleased to announce that ENR will hold 2 special sessions during this conference. The first one will take place this afternoon at 1 p.m. and will showcase best practices implemented by the ENR member agencies. It aims to demonstrate how national energy agencies are using behavioral insights to design their programs and to address energy-related behavioral change at individual and collective levels of different target groups. Several ENR members will present and discuss how the energy agencies support households and communities through the energy transition, with a focus on behavior change and advice services. The second will take place tomorrow morning and will bring together energy agencies, policymakers, and leading social scientists to initiate a discussion on the insights that can be gained from behavioral science into energy policy making. Indeed, there is a need for a more joined-up approach so that energy agency programs are as effective as they can be. I hope this collaboration will continue in the future, as within this area, there is much that energy agencies can learn from social and behavioral sciences to strengthen their work they have to do. Finally, I would like to extend my gratitude on behalf of the European EnR network to UNEP DTU partnership and to the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency for the organization of this event together with our network. Thank you for your attention. I hope that these 2 days of work ahead will be fruitful and enriching. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Leroy, for your kind words. We are all very anxious to see the contributions of the different components and sessions of this conference. I would like now to move on to Mr. Radka, who is, as I mentioned, the acting director of UNEP's Economy Division in Paris. Mark, please, the floor is yours.
Gabriela, thank you very, very much, and a warm welcome to everyone. It's a real great pleasure to be with you today. UNEP is an intergovernmental organization. It's been described as the UN's Ministry of Environment. Our role is to help governments agree on high-level goals where environmental cooperation brings benefits, and then help them take action. In the context of this gathering, it's the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly number 7 on energy, and the temperature limits agreed in the Paris Agreement on climate change that drive a lot of our work on energy efficiency. Every year, UNEP prepares something called the Emissions Gap Report. In this annual report, we take a snapshot and say where we are relative to where we need to be regarding the emissions and the trends in greenhouse gas emissions. Last year's report, which came out in November, made clear that we are heading for a temperature rise of 3 degrees by the end of this century. And that far exceeds the Paris Agreement goals limiting global warming to well below 2 degrees and pursuing 1.5 degree as the maximum average temperature rise. And because of growing global population, economic development, improved access to electricity, lifestyle changes, and a warming climate that drives demand for cooling, billions and billions of new appliances will be added to the global stock by 2030. Also, new buildings and factories servicing the demand for equipment and energy, and equipment that produces energy. It means as well growing demand for metals, rare earths, and cement. So more mining, more resources extracted from the earth. Growth without change will mean doubling the global electricity infrastructure by 2050, driven primarily in developing and emerging economies. This is not a good path, and it's one that I think is apparent to everybody here today that we need to change. And to get off this destructive path, we need many things, including that changes be more energy efficient. It's not the only thing, of course, but it's a critical element of bringing about the world that we'd like to see. We have to change policies and we have to change technologies, but we also have to change our own behavior and focus, I think, on the services we obtain from using energy and the psychological wants that these services satisfy. Behave, the title of this conference says a lot. It reminds me of when parents teach their young children by repeating good behavior and the reasons behind it multiple times to get the message across and get new behaviors sort of ingrained to the point where people don't even think about them. It also reminds me that the issue of energy efficiency, like children, has been around for a long time. But as we all know, even with strong evidence in favor of using energy more efficiently, it still is both a huge challenge and a tantalizing opportunity. In UNEP, we like to think that we're practical people. We realize that most citizens in the world do not wake up and think, how can I save the planet? But the good news is they don't wake up thinking with the intention of harming it either. This suggests we need more behavior-focused policy efforts, a better understanding of why people make the decisions that they do, and insights on how we can shift thinking and behavior. The goal here, from a UNEP perspective, is finding a way to live better and lighter. From our experience, we know that communicating the data, the evidence, the impacts of what is right, what is happening to the planet and people, the economic benefits of energy efficiency, they don't necessarily lead to action. We know people don't change their behavior just because we think it's economically efficient or in their long-term interests. The current economic system, the aspirational messaging and popular culture are dominated by pro-consumption forces. So it's important, it's critical actually, to engage the skills, the talents, and the expertise of those of you who can influence the current system. We need to make energy efficiency irresistible to consumers wherever they are in the value chain in order to make change happen. Living sustainably is not just about individual choice. We realize that. It's also about governments and businesses enacting the policies and the practices and designing and promoting goods and services that guide and offer more sustainable lifestyle options. Governments have an important role to play in making it easier to do the right thing. And in UNEP, we do work with governments, as I mentioned. We work with cities and other international organizations, and certainly with the private sector, on a range of energy efficiency activities, including those focused on education and behavior change. We almost always work with partners, among them DTU, with whom we're helping drive energy efficiency in countries around the world. The UNEP DTU partnership, of which the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency is an integral part, is a founding member of the 3% Club, a global collaboration of governments and supporting organizations that are working together to put the world on a path toward a 3% annual efficiency improvement. We also in UNEP work on a range of behavior-oriented interventions. I can give you a few examples. We have programs, I would call them the kind of mainline programs, but establishing affecting labeling schemes and raising consumer awareness about the benefits of energy efficiency. Important, but not sufficient. Some of my colleagues are working with the biggest companies in the video games industry in an effort called Playing for the Planet Alliance. This conveys messages on sustainable lifestyles to more than 1 billion video game players, and they are in an age bracket that actually can be, in a sense, influenced. Through the companies, we are both embedding messages on energy efficiency in online video games. And an interesting effort that included behavior experts that developed a social media toolkit called the Anatomy for Action. The kit links climate change to people's daily decisions regarding the food they eat, how they get around, so their mobility choices in a sense, how they live, where they spend their money and leisure time. Some of these efforts are having good results, but what they really make clear is how much more needs to be done to ensure that we take advantage of the enormous potential of energy efficiency for our climate and economies. Conferences like this one really are absolutely helpful in shedding light on the existing gaps and opportunities in behavior change and suggesting ways in which we can better integrate the new thinking in strategies, policies, and business models. At UNEP, we believe that we can make the much needed disruptive change in our systems happen. But this will only occur if we bring together policymakers and the private sector, academics, including behavioral scientists, marketing experts, advertisers, media influencers, those people who study and communicate to consumers every day and who are particularly adept at monitoring the effectiveness of messaging. We also see great value in engaging educators and faith groups, social media, and cultural influencers who are already communicating on lifestyle issues. The same goes for social impact finance experts. so-called finance angels who can align great ideas with financial know-how and who understand the thinking of the different elements of the finance sector. All of this is necessary because no matter how sustainable a good or service is, if it doesn't sell, it doesn't matter. Some of these stakeholders are new to our work in UNEP, though they're familiar and aligned to the sustainability agenda. We need to let everyone know about the need to make the delivery of more sustainable energy work with nature and not against it. If we do this in UNEP, we are convinced that we can bring real and positive change for our planet while improving the lives of billions of people around the world. So thank you very much for inviting me to share a UNEP perspective on this very important topic. I look forward very much to the discussions, and thank you again for allowing me to join you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Radka, for your intervention and shedding a light on how UNEP is doing to try to make energy efficiency irresistible. That's really what is needed. I would like now to move on to our keynote speaker of this morning, Mr. Helge Næss-Schmidt, that has, as I mentioned before, kindly accepted to give us a presentation and his experience and on the intersection between behavior and the financing. I would like to invite now Mr. Næss-Schmidt to take the floor. Thank you. Please.
Thank you very much. And I first express my honors to be allowed to speak in this audience today. We are have been involved as a company in a number of projects over the last decade, which has touched on various aspects of energy efficiency. I think the last 2 years we have very much worked on the interaction between financial market institutions and the financing of energy efficiency. Today I'm going to speak to you about a project that we soon start, which has so the basic measure here is how financial institutions can close the energy efficiency gap. In this context, I will talk about the Nordic Energy Efficiency Mortgage Hub. That is a project that will commence very soon here in May. I'll talk about both the premises and the specific workings of this project. So I hope you can all see the screen. The first question, I think here I'm probably preaching to the converted. A number of key numbers that suggest that the energy emissions emanating from buildings must be a serious part of any policy to deal with climate change and greenhouse gases, because the buildings are part of a large part of consumption of energy, emissions from energy, and also that we have, in a number of studies at global level, identified that a very large part of the existing building stock is not energy efficient. But I think I'll add some layers to this on the right-hand side of this slide, is namely that we would like to highlight two issues. First of all, classical issues around increasing energy efficiency, which is doing energy efficient renovations of existing buildings, making them lose less heat by adding climate shields and so on and so forth. But we will also very much highlight what we call the green electrification of the economy. So in all projections at the international level suggest that electrification of a larger part of the energy consumption. There's a lot of noise. Someone should mute. Thank you. The green electrification of the energy. What that means is that we will increasingly see wind power and sun power providing the heat and the lighting in buildings in a larger part of the world. So energy efficiency going forward is not only about reducing the energy consumption of usual energy sources, but also switching the energy source. So that's very important. to bear in mind. Now, the background for this particular hub is 3 underlying promises. The first one is the classical one, and again, I'm here preaching to the converted, that we observe a number of projects that are essentially privately profitable with prevailing market conditions, including the energy taxes in place. Yet, these projects are not being undertaken. I think this is a very important area of concern, because here we have projects that can actually be undertaken without the final consumers having to bear a larger financial burden. And I think that's very important, not only for rich countries, but in particular for poor countries. So that's the first premise. The second premise is that this is nothing new. This is because for at least the past 10 years and even more so. And we also know what the barriers are. It's about the information packages provided to consumers. It is the fact that we have inadequate data to identify the most promising consumers and the buildings they live in, and also to verify the actual investment effects once the renovation or the change in investment has taken place. And there are very high transaction costs. It's one thing to do any renovation of a very large industrial plant, where there's a whole range of engineers looking at this, and they are used to dealing with large investments, to investments that are typically one-off, and where the transaction cost involved with identifying the potential, getting the contract put in place, and so on and so forth, can be very high. And this is a true cost which is very often disregarded in these investments. So the basic here is what we need to implement a solution that addresses the information gap, the data gap, and the transaction problem. And that is in the premise number 3, namely that financial institutions are in a key position to implement solutions. That is certainly the case for households and, let's say, the smaller business segment. The financial advisors are typically in a good position to advise the customers about, financial investments, their how they the financial room for maneuver they have to undertake specific investments, and they're also, of course, in a position, of course, where they can provide the finance. So the question is, how do financial institutions bring themselves in a place where they can be an important part of the advisory role? So that's really the whole premise for this project we are now about to commence. How can financial institutions implement solutions to overcome the energy efficiency gap? Now, just a few words about the specific project. It's a project led and financed by the European Commission on the Horizon 2020. And what we have done in this project is to align a number of very specific experts. We modestly include ourselves, but also in behavioral economics firm called EnR, the European Mortgage Federation, that has a key role in understanding the financing part and using the green label. We have also allied ourselves with what's called the Green Digital Finance Alliance, because we believe that digital tools and data will be a key part of this. And we are also in this expert group, we have including the Danish Technical University that has specific competence in these areas. So that is on the expert side. But we also have, and that is the central part of this, what we call market demonstrators. So we have in our project 2 of the largest Nordic banks involved, 2 banks that has presence in all the Nordic countries and is really looking to implement consumer close solutions in this area. We also have HEMA in place, that is a Swedish bank that is focused on digital banking solutions. So the purpose here is then to test solutions that will overcome barriers within the 3 institutions, namely HEMA and the 2 banks. In addition to that, those directly in the project, we also have an advisory board that includes other financial institutions that are not directly part of the project. So the most important point, the solution number one is better data access. What we are seeing across countries, and certainly I would say in the Nordic countries, is a very huge focus on allowing real-time data to be allowed to identify where the most profitable investments could be made. It's about combining public register-based data with private data. Some of the countries in which we are looking at here have spent a lot of time developing data hubs, combining sources of data from different sources. And the purpose of that is that we want to combine energy consumption data with weather data, for example, provide clear recommendation on how data should be collected, used, and assessed, and then in particular allow digitalized automatic verification process of the renovation. So why are we doing this? It is essentially to address the information gap and also the transaction gap, and combining that with solutions that are directly applicable and understandable by the consumers. So that brings me to the second one. Now, once we have, through a much better data management identification process, how can we actually convert a potential business proposition for a customer? Say you can earn net 10 units of currency over the next 10 years. You need to invest, let's say, 5 more now. So what we know, there are a number of behavioral biases, and how can we more specifically address this? And here it comes into today's the focus of this conference, namely behavioral biases. So we need to work with business solutions, information solutions, tool solutions that are specifically addressing the behavioral biases. And that is, of course, by providing different kind of what we call consumer guidance, providing target information with the right timing, when buying a new home. It's no use overloading the consumers with data when they don't use it. But that's, for example, where it's smart to work with a bank, because they know exactly when a consumer would be faced with an investment decision. They could also be there considering other innovation that has nothing to do with the actual. They're not looking specifically to do an energy renovation, but they are wanting to do some other investments on the house. And then in this context, we're smart to say, yes, but in addition, you can also do A, B, C, and D. So what I provided here just for information is an example from the webpage of the behavioral science consultancy company that we are working with, examples of how you can make very targeted, simple information packages to consumers that can help them, guide them through a process. And the purpose, of course, is to make sure that financial institutions are working with companies across the Nordic space that is capable of providing this kind of information. And also in this network, we'll have discussions with energy service providers. In fact, the companies that are specifically undertaking some of these investments, how can they also be linked to this project? And for example, you could think that financial institutions would have trusted advisors that they repeatedly use when they want to do help a consumer make an innovation project in their neighborhood. So this is all about lowering transaction costs as well. So that has something to do with reducing the layers of PV go through, but I think a lot of transaction costs has also to do with simply reducing the amount of time and effort and nuisances that the consumer is facing when doing that. And we know from a number of studies that transaction cost can be simply a spilverderber, the one triggering point that stops an otherwise viable product going down. So if transaction costs can be reduced meaningfully, we know that a much larger share of investments of innovation will go forward. Then we have also there's some regulatory barriers in the financial world. So we have in a previous project that we're about to conclude also look a bit about how should you treat from a capital market prudential regulation perspective investments in this area. I won't spend so much time to this right now because that has little to do with behavioral areas, but other factors that could impede it. And this project will also deal with some other regulatory barriers. So basically, this project is about addressing transaction costs, what can be done to reduce them, behavioral information barriers, how can information be packaged in such a way that consumers are more likely to take up otherwise viable investment products, what has that to do with the data. There can also be specific financial barriers in place, and it can also be regulatory barriers, including, for example, the discussion around the taxonomy at the EU level. So we'll also use this exercise to pick on, identify what could be either national or EU or otherwise or other international barriers that prevent practical solutions to reach the consumers. So of course the solutions to these barriers is of course to reduce transaction costs, provide better consumer guidance, increase the level and the validity and the relevance of data. It's also about what we call aggregate risk management in financial institutions, so they know how to deal with this risk associated with climate change and the risk associated with the buildings that is emitting greenhouse gases. And then we also have what we call regulatory guidance to policymakers. What if you want this to happen? What would be the most important regulatory solutions that you need to put in place? So just finally about the project, it's a 2-year project. The first phase starting here over the summer will be identification process. We need to identify the specific barriers in place. Then we'll move into a solution development. So what kind of tools can we use? And then we'll have what we call the market demonstration. We need to take these solutions and put them into practice by the banks in place. Does it actually work? And then we need to evaluate them and see what can be agreed. And then, of course, at the end of the day, report whether we have identified the right barriers, whether we have put in place solutions that actually work, and hopefully how could the solutions going forward be even more targeted towards addressing the basic problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Næss-Schmidt. It was very interesting to see the work you are coming up with and to see and recognize many of familiar issues around deploying energy efficiency around the world. In fact, in our daily work at the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency, we face most of these issues coming up in our daily work. So thank you very much for your words and explaining about this project, and we look forward to see the results of it. I would like now to close this opening session. We have come up to the end, and would like to invite you to come back to the Behave conference at 10:30. We have now time to grab a cup of coffee and come back with reinforced energy to the conference. Thank you very much, and we see you again at 10:30. Thank you.
Thank you.